I'm Virginia Walton. I apologize for the slight delay this morning. There's part of me that would love to say I planned it as part of my talk on for women in risk and 3 ways to stop your self-destructive messages, but I did not. But it is going to be part of an example here, so just bear with me. So, for those that don't know me, I'm Virginia Walton. I'm an executive burnout coach, helping women in risk management use the tools that they use all day to mitigate their company and employer's risk to manage their own risk of exhaustion, overwhelm, and burnout, and keep them focused on their own well being so that they can continue to thrive both personally and professionally. So, real quick about me, prior to starting my coaching practice, I spent 24 years in the banking and finance industry where I worked from teller to small community bank to senior vice president of a $27 billion bank by the age of 38. I'd love to tell you that it was super easy and I did everything right, but I'd be lying. Fortunately, along the way, I learned a lot, both in terms of, technical skills, but it also in terms of leadership and style. Some of them I learned by studying, some of them I learned the hard way. So now I want to share my experiences and my knowledge with other women so that they can have even greater success and an easier path than I did. So thanks for joining me. So this might sound familiar, right? We can be our own worst enemies. We spend time mentally beating ourselves up, questioning, doubting. The phrase is the imposter syndrome. I don't know that I ever thought of myself as an imposter, but there were days where I was like, did I really earn my seat at the table? Do I really belong here? And this is true both in our personal and professional lives, right? You may have days where you question, and am I really nailing this in terms of being a parent or being a spouse or partner or sibling, friend, child, right? We're really hard on ourselves, especially if you're driven to succeed, right? Hello, type A's, raise your hand. You put a lot of pressure on yourself. You're very critical. I know I am, right? As I saw the clock ticking down this morning, I'm like, crap, hair dryer, lipstick, let's go. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I didn't plan my morning well. And I could have sat there and just stewed on this and crumbled and been like, I'm a failure, right? That doesn't serve me any good. It doesn't allow me to serve you, right? Hey, I'm house sitting a very large dog and he went to the door and looked at me like, I gotta go. So we went. So I'll own I'm a few minutes late. It's not the end of the world. It doesn't make me any less competent at what I do, right? Maybe you've had that experience of one time I was stuck in the hallway in the stairwell in our headquarters. My badge and the door was kind of funny and I couldn't get in. So I would have been on time to a call, but I was late. And when I joined, the EVP whose business I supported said, hey, Virginia, what time does a 10 o'clock meeting start? Because it was like 10:05, 10:03, right? Yes. Do I remember that experience? Yes. I could have sat there and crumbled and been completely ineffective the rest of the meeting, beating myself up for taking the stairs rather than the elevator and for being late and being called out and kind of shit. Okay, it happened. Move on, right? So we probably do this all the time. We don't always realize the damage that is causing, right? Because you're feeding that message in your head that you are inferior, that you are less qualified, you are not deserving in your role. So you need to stop that, right? So how do we do that, right? We can probably all agree that repeated message, right? You would never sit and discourage and criticize your child repeatedly. They made a mistake, you would point it out help them learn from it and move on. You wouldn't continue to berate them, right? Because you know that's not going to help them, but yet we do it in our own head. Kind of funny, right? So this piece of hair, sorry today, this just wants to not cooperate. So first step one, have a foundation. And by having a foundation, I say it's really about creating awareness and then how you approach it. I'm going to share another example. Maybe about 8 years ago, I was in a small conference room. I was meeting with 3 colleagues. They all sat 1, maybe 2 notches on that corporate ladder. They were SVPs. I'm not even sure I had yet been made a VP. I had one of the shortest stints as a VP. They were all at least 12, 15 years older than me, so they had more experience. They were all male, and 2 of them were more than a foot taller than me. So I was physically smaller, right? So you can kind of see the dynamic of that feeling of the structure of the participants kind of led for me to feel questionable, a little bit on the, do I really belong here, right? So as we're getting ready to start our meeting, they start talking about a book that they had all read called American Icon. I apologize, I don't recall the name of the author. I'll drop it in the comments. The story was about Alan Mullally's turnaround of Ford. And I highly recommend it, by the way. They had all read it. And they're talking about it and the learnings they got from it. So now I'm like, oh my gosh, I never even heard of this book. I rarely had time to sit down and read. Like, I was just busy, long commute, long hours, blah, blah, blah. So I started to feel really uncomfortable because I couldn't contribute to the conversation. And that feeling was enhanced by that dynamic I just explained. So here's where foundation comes in. Recognize that I was feeling that way. Now, you might thinking, well, Virginia, you felt inferior and you still remember it 8 years later. I turned it into an opportunity, right? So I made note of the book and I made note that I needed to read this at some point. And ironically, one of those colleagues had been nagging me to start using Audible. And I was reluctant because I didn't want another monthly fee, right? Another subscription. So finally, one weekend, I'm sick. I'm in bed. I'm like, you know what? Let me try it out. And you got a free book. I picked that book. I loved it. It's it gives you the techniques that Alan Mulally used, but it's in a story format, right? So it's easy to learn. I read it. So not only the next time it came up was I prepared, or could say, oh, I've read that. I see. I started to see where the most senior person at that table started applying the techniques. So when I saw it, I was able to engage with him and show, oh, did you start doing this because you read that book? He goes, yes. Right. So now I went from feeling inferior to be able to identify, I learned, and I could engage with my superior in an intellectual level on a non-technical matter. Right. So it showed that I was listening. I wanted to learn. So I took that feeling of inferiority and doubt and insecurity and turned it into a learning opportunity. That's the foundation, is how you approach it. Recognize it. It's okay to feel it. Recognize it and say, okay, I can learn here, and how. The second is create a win list. Now, this might sound cheesy, coachy. I get it. How you create the list is totally whatever works best for you. You know, I used to keep an electronic Post-it on my desktop where I would highlight things as I accomplished them throughout the year. So when it came time to do that self-assessment at the end of the year, I didn't have to sit and try to go back through notes. I already had things started and I could build that out. So you could keep it in terms of electronically, you know, use it in the context of your performance review cycle. You know, if many organizations require a self-assessment. If you journal, use it in your journal, right? I'm a big advocate for every day writing down something that you're grateful for. Take the same approach if you do that. Just like when you first start doing it's a struggle to find something you're grateful for. You might be like, I'm grateful that I got up when the alarm went off, right? Nothing profound. Do the same thing. Every day you've accomplished something. So just like every day you're grateful for something, there's something to be grateful, whether it's small or big. Write down the one thing you've accomplished. It'll help reinforce that every day you're accomplishing stuff, whether it's I nailed my board presentation, or it's, you know what, I got everybody where we needed to be on time today, or as simple as kept tiny humans alive. Hey, that's a big accomplishment. So whether it's an Excel file, it's in your journal, or it's just a mental checklist you prepare for. Like, yeah, you know what? Why am I questioning myself? I earned my seat at the table. I got this role. You know, I get great performance reviews. So I made a mistake. So I learned from it. Okay. Have that list ready so that when you're starting to doubt yourself, you can reflect to it. Whether you physically have to take it out and read it, open up a file, or just run it in your head, right? We're good at running messages in our head. Make them the one about your accomplishments, right? And you can do this whether you're struggling with beating yourself up and doubting yourself in your role, your organization, at home, right? We all have days where we feel like we're just not bringing our best to a relationship, whatever type it is, whether it's with family, friends, Okay, you know what? Maybe I missed a birthday and an anniversary of friends last week. I felt like an ass. So reached out, sorry, missed it, my bad. You know what? I sent her a card this week that said, hey, I'm extending it, and I did something a little extra that I probably wouldn't have had I not. I'm like, oh, she'll love this. So recognize you're human. You made a mistake. You've got all these accomplishments versus this time. So foundation, right? That, hey, it's okay to feel this way. You want to work to minimize it. If it's starting to be too long, reflect back on all of your accomplishments or recent accomplishments, whatever, to help you refresh and go, no, I'm good. I'm not a moron, right? I had this experience. I used to manage our credit policy, and I was making the edits after actually the same boss who implemented this story, the techniques from this book I mentioned. He would red pen a paper copy, and I'd go in, and so there was a lot of red ink. And I had inherited this document. I finally got to a section where I had crafted all the language, and there was no red ink. I'm like, hey, I'm not a moron. He doesn't think I'm an idiot. Whatever it takes for you to give yourself that boost of saying, okay, this was one time. Refresh my mindset. Let me refresh, right? Third step, last one. You've recognized it. You got to stop it. You got to do whatever it takes when you feel yourself going into that spiral. Stop. Okay. Whether it's, you may have to depending upon where you're sitting. If you're in a meeting, don't go, stop. People might look at you weird. So whether you have to say it out loud, if you have to just say it in your head, text yourself if you need to see it. My high school Latin teacher said, read it, write it, remember it. So you're reading it as you're typing it. You're writing it as you're typing it, and you'll read it again when the text pops back at you, right? Stop. But the most important of these steps is to recognize the behavior and see how you can turn it into a learning opportunity, right? And then reflect on your accomplishments, your wins, to help you start sending yourself the positive messages. I know sometimes it can be hard, so start small. Habit takes time to develop. I get that. The most important thing is recognize it so you can stop that spiral. Do not let it continue, okay? You've earned your seat. You're a good parent. You are a good friend. You had a misstep. Okay, you're human. You're human. You're allowed to make mistakes. It's the best way to learn. But recognize when you're starting to beat yourself up in your own mind. It does you no good, and it helps no one else. Okay. I hope you have found this helpful. If you did, and you're looking for more information, reach out, drop me a comment, go to my website, virginiawalton.com. You'll find more videos like this. And if you're like, this makes sense, but I'm struggling, I've been trying to do this, I'm here to help. So let's connect. Let's see how we can get you starting a new habit. There's 6 months left to the year. It's a great time to start new habits. You still have a lot of time to make that on your win list. So with that, be well, and I look forward to hearing from you soon.